Hello and welcome. You're watching the Daily News Simplified. I'm Ankit, and today, being 19th of July, we'll be discussing 6 important articles which appeared in today's newspaper. Now, before moving forward, please make sure to like this video and also to subscribe our YouTube channel. Now, all of you must have seen the movie Three Idiots, and you'll remember when the group of three friends went to Raju house. The mother of Raju, she highlighted that the prices of vegetable in recent times have increased. Now this problem, it is not just prominent from movies or from one household's point of view, but from the point of view of entire economy. And this is the subject of our discussion for the first article. Now as you can see, the articles related to the disinflationary trend and rise in prices of vegetables appeared in the Hindu as well as in the Indian Express newspaper. Now, if you look closely, the article it highlights that the Reserve Bank of India has been raising concerns over high food inflation in Indian economy. Now, for the previous 3 months, we have seen a period of disinflation. Now, what is disinflation? It is a period when inflation reduces. Now, this period was in a way cancelled because of rise in inflation, and this rise in inflation was due to increase in prices of food products, particularly that of vegetables. Now, this news article becomes important from GS Paper 3 perspective because if you look closely in the syllabus, it highlights transport and marketing of agricultural produce and issues and related constraints. Also, questions related to this topic have been frequently asked by UPSC. Case in point, this PYQ of the year 2020. So in this article, we'll be discussing how food inflation has been on the rise for the past few months, what are its reasons, and what are the steps that have been taken by the government in this regard to reduce the prices of food products. Also, we'll conclude with a suggestive way forward in order how to stabilize the prices of food products. Now, if you look at this graph, it highlights the change in pattern of rise in food inflation with respect to overall inflation in the economy. Now, as you can see from June of last year, we have seen increase in divergence of prices of food products and general inflation, and it has continued even this year. And because of this, we see increase in overall inflation also because food inflation forms a subcomponent of overall inflation. Now, in this regard, let us understand what have been the factors that contribute or that is contributing to the food inflation in India. Now, we'll start with the first factor, which is termed as weather disturbances. Now, this factor becomes much more prominent during the summer and rainfall season because during this season, we witnessed higher temperatures overall and also higher amount of general rainfall across most areas in the country. Now, because of all these two factors, we have seen it has reduced or it has affected the production of food products because it reduces the yield and it also damages the plants which eventually grow into crops. Hence, the production of food products is suffering because of change in weather patterns. And also, it increases the disruption in supply chain, that is transportation of your food products from farm to mandis and then eventually to the consumers. So this factor plays a prominent role during summer and rainfall season. There's also a factor called cascading effect, which means adding up of various charges which is throughout the supply chain of food products. For example, a farmer, he or she sells his farm produce in an mandi which is called as an APMC mandi. Now the seller of vegetables, they procure this raw material from APMC and this raw material is eventually sold to consumers like you and I. So you can see from farmers to consumer there are two different stages and all of which charge some amount of money. So the eventual money that the consumer is paying for fruits and vegetables, it gets eventually added up. Hence, it contributes to food inflation in a drastic manner. Also, there's a quality about horticultural products that they are perishable in nature, that they cannot survive without colder temperatures. So, to store these perishable vegetables or to increase their shelf life, we need cold storage infrastructure. However, due to this absence of cold storage infrastructure in our country, because of lack of adequate cold storage infrastructure or food processing industries, all of which increase the shelf life of products, and because of the absence of adequate infrastructure, we are seeing increased amount of post harvest losses. Now, this increased losses due to varied nature, it reduces the supply of food products into our market, hence creating an upward pressure on the prices of these food products, thereby contributing to food inflation in an economy. Also, this results into what is called as a demand supply gap. Because as you can understand, the demand for fruit and vegetable, it remains almost constant throughout the year. However, whenever the supply of these products reduces due to, say, reduced yield due to weather products or due to their perishable nature and post harvest losses, this creates what is called as a demand supply gap. So, from basic economics concept, you understand that whenever the supply of any product reduces, it leads to increase in the prices of the products. Understood? So, to fill this demand supply gap, it is also a challenging task. You ask why? Because of a term called cobweb phenomena. Now, I'll tell you what is this cobweb phenomena. Now, this cobweb phenomena, it highlights that the increase in supply with respect to increase in demand, the increase in supply responds with some kind of time lag. For example, whenever there is an increase in price of, say, tomato in a market, now this will mean that increase in prices will encourage more and more farmers to grow tomatoes because they'll look to encash this increase in prices. Now, as farmers, they continue to grow more and more tomatoes. Eventually, after the crop matures, it increases the supply of tomato in the market. Now, you understood that by increasing supply, it will lead to reduction in prices of tomato. Now, this reduction in prices of tomato, it discourages the farmers to grow tomato because they'll be looking to grow some other crop which is getting more prices. Hence, the growth or the crops of tomatoes, they reduce because of this fall in prices. Now, after this reduced growth of tomato, it eventually matures. It leads to lower supply of tomatoes in the market. Now, this lower supply, which you will again understand, creates an upward pressure on prices, which means the prices of tomatoes will increase. Now, this whole cycle, it is called as a cobweb phenomena, because you can understand to grow a crop and to mature it, it requires some amount of time. So, whenever there is a supply gap in an economy, the farmers, they try to increase this supply gap, but it takes certain time for the food products to reach eventually to the end consumers like you and I. And because of this, there creates a supply gap in an economy which is difficult to fulfill or filled in a shorter amount of time. So these factors in total, that is weather disturbances, cascading effect, the perishable nature of vegetables, which you cannot store because there is an inadequate infrastructure. And this creates a demand and supply gap which you cannot fill on an immediate basis because of cobweb phenomena. So all these factors, they culminate into increase in food inflation in an economy. Now let us understand what have been the government interventions in the recent past that has tried to stabilize the prices of food products in an economy. Now, the first and probably the most heard about government intervention is imposition of export restrictions. For example, last year the production of rice in India it reduced to some extent. So because of that, to increase the supply in domestic market, the government imposed an export ban on export of parboiled rice, which is in great demand in other countries. Further, due to reduced production of onion, government imposed a minimum export price on export of onions. So these two are examples how government tries to restrict exports to increase the supply of food products in domestic market. Understood. Now also to fulfill the demand gap in an economy, the government it imports fruits and vegetables from other international markets also. For example, whenever the prices of onion they increase, India imports the onion from nations such as Turkey. So you can understand these two measures, that is imposition of export restrictions and importing of fruits and vegetables from other countries. They are intended to increase the supply of these fruit and vegetables in domestic market. Now also to prevent traders and wholesalers from hoarding or to stocking of these fruits and vegetables which can create artificial scarcity in an economy, the government it imposes stock limits on traders as well. And these have been imposed through Essential Commodities Act of the year 1955 and Prevention of Black Marketing and Maintenance of Supplies of Essential Commodities Act of the year 1980. Now, through these two acts, the government they impose stock limits on traders, which prevents these traders to have stocks which are over and above of the limits imposed by the government. Now, this prevents these traders from hoarding or to creating artificial scarcity of food, fruits and vegetables in an economy. Again, this measure is also intended to increase the supply of fruits and vegetables in the domestic market. Now, also to reduce the inflationary pressures, the government has also undertaken distribution of various agricultural commodities through its other measures as well. For example, government it sells fruits and vegetables through organized retails such as Safal Shop, which you will see in Delhi, and also it sells food grains through public distribution system, which means person having a ration card can obtain these food grains from fair price shops. Now, in the recent measure, the government it brought forward a scheme called Pradhan Mantri Garib Kalyan Ann Yojana. Now, under this scheme, 80 crore eligible beneficiaries they are eligible to take food grains from fair price shops at free of cost. So you can understand by selling fixed amount of fruit and vegetables through organized retail at lower price and by providing food grains for free to 80 crore eligible beneficiaries, the government is looking to distribute food items at a cheaper or at no cost to a significant amount of population. Also, government in recent past have brought forward many schemes which are intended to regulate prices of agricultural commodities. For example, the government it maintains buffer stocks of various food grains, and in case the stocks of these food grains in market they reduce, the government increases the supply through what is called as an open market sales scheme. Also, government has brought forward what is called as the price stabilization fund. Now, the proceeds from this fund they are used to purchase excess stock of food items from the market, and whenever the supply of these items they reduce in the market, the government sells these items in an open market to increase the supply of various agricultural commodities. Also, there was this scheme called Operation Greens, which was brought forward to increase the production of various horticultural commodities like tomatoes, onion, and potatoes, which are very essential, and also to increase the supply chain infrastructure, which will lead to lowering of prices. Now, this Operation Green initially was brought forward for only three crops, that was tomatoes, onion, and potatoes. However, it was extended to as much as more than 20 horticultural commodities. Also, government undertakes the monitoring of prices of various food products such as onion and 21 other horticultural commodities. And in case it helps governments to identify and address the price anomalies which happen across the economy. Because whenever government monitors increase in prices, it undertakes several operations such as liquidating its buffer stock or purchasing of excess stock from market, which it will eventually sell later on. So all these government interventions, they are aimed to first of all increase the supply of horticultural commodities in the market, provide these food items for either at subsidized price or for free, and also to regulate the prices of these food products in an economy through various monitoring and government schemes. Now, in this regard, let us understand what should be the way forward in order to reduce the food inflation in an economy. Now, there is a need to reform our trade policy, which is currently very reactive in nature. Because whenever the supply of food grains they reduce in a domestic economy, the government reacts in form of export restrictions. Now, these export restrictions, they are very harmful for Indian agricultural exports, because as you can understand, India is an agricultural exporting country, which means Indian products, they are in high demand in international markets. So whenever government reacts to these increase in food prices by imposing export restrictions, it reduces our agricultural exports in general, which ultimately harms the farmers. So it is needed to calibrate our trade policy so as that trade policy it responds to market conditions in general. Because whenever there is a supply glut or low supply in a market, the trade policy will automatically impose export restrictions. But whenever the supply level it stabilizes in the market, these export restrictions will again be automatically removed. Hence, by having a calibrated trade policy, it will enable the government to react to changes in supply of agricultural commodities. Also, government should try to make the price stabilization system more and more efficient in nature. Because by making it more efficient, the government will be able to preempt the changes in supply, which will enable the government to react accordingly. And according to this step, the government should preemptively procure important commodities such as onion, and these onions can then be liquidated in an open market in case of reduction of supply of onions. Also, government needs to introduce what is called as a price deficiency payment system. Because I've already highlighted, whenever there's an increase in supply of horticultural commodities in a market, it lowers the prices of horticultural commodities. So because of this factor, sorry. So because of this factor, what we have seen that the income levels of farmer, it reduces. So to compensate the farmers who eventually sell their food products at lower prices, the government should look to compensate them through this price deficiency payment system, and the amount of money that the government should give should be the difference between the market prices as well as the benchmark prices. Also, the government should have a technologically driven price forecasting system, because whenever the price forecasting system is efficient, it will enable the government to respond to the changes and it will also enable the government to send advisory services to farmers in general, who will then respond by sowing more and more crops. Hence, a price forecasting system which is technologically driven will enable the government and farmers to respond to changes in supply and demand more and more quickly. Also, by investing in infrastructure, be it creation of cold storage infrastructure and food processing infrastructure, the government can increase the shelf life of our food products, which will eventually put a downward pressure on prices in an economy. So these were all for today's discussion on the first article, which dealt with food inflation. And with this, we move to second article of the day, which you can see appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Now, this newspaper highlights that the Finance Commission, which was 16th Finance Commission, it was established in the December of last year. Now, this Finance Commission, it is expected to submit its report next year by October. So, this is what the article is all about, that it describes the role of Finance Commission, which we'll eventually learn in our today's discussion. Now, this Finance Commission, it is a constitutional body which is established as per the Article 280 of the Constitution. And it is important from GS paper 2 perspective. Also, questions on this topic have been asked quite frequently, as you can see, of this PYQ which appeared in the year 2018. So, we'll discuss what is this Finance Commission. Now, as you can understand, both central and state governments have their respective powers. And the Constitution, by 7th schedule, it provides for distribution of powers in Indian political system between both central and state governments. Now, this include various functions such as central government, it is responsible for foreign policy, telecommunication, whereas state governments, it is responsible for activities such as policing, education, and healthcare. Now, to undertake all this function, both of these governments, they require some kind of money, which they eventually get through various sources of revenue. For example, central government imposes income tax, corporate tax, securities transaction tax, whereas on the other hand, the state government, it imposes land revenue as well as taxes on alcoholic consumable products. Now, as these both governments, they have a separate sense of revenue. However, in practice, we have seen that the revenues which are earned by union government, they are quite a lot more than the revenues earned by state governments combined in general. And this creates what you can call a sort of mismatch between the funds of the union government and state government. So, to balance this fiscal ability of these two governments, the Constitution under the Article 280 has provided for constitution of a Finance Commission every 5 years. Now, this Finance Commission, it is a government body which is responsible for many tasks. Eventually, they are aimed to balance the fiscal capacities of both governments, that is union and state governments. Now, let us understand what are the recommendations which are made by Finance Commission in general. Now, to compensate the state governments, the Finance Commission, it provides for a formula to distribute the net proceeds of taxes, which means that the total tax which is collected by the union government, it is distributed from union to state government, which is called as a vertical devolution, which means the funds are moving from union to state government, as well as distribution of these taxes from among the states, which is an example of horizontal devolution, which means the taxes that distributed among various states of Indian political system. Now, the Finance Commission, it provides for various set of formulas to provide or to distribute the money which is obtained by union government to state governments and to among different state government levels. Also, the Finance Commission, it provides for giving of grant in aid to states by the central government under the Article 275, and there are various type of grants which are given by the union government to state governments. For example, there is a local body grant which is given by union to state government, and it is aimed to strengthen the local bodies in India, which is Panchayati Raj institution and urban local bodies, by improving service delivery as well as strengthening their finances. Also, the government of India, it provides states with other type of grants such as revenue deficit grant, which is provided to states which have higher expenditures as well as lower revenues. So the amount of gap between their income and expenditure, it is compensated through this revenue deficit grant. Also, the state governments, they are provided with performance based grants. Now these performance based grants, they are provided to states which have taken fiscal discipline measures, that they have tried to reduce the inefficiencies of their spending, and also according to sector specific performances, especially in the sectors of education as well as healthcare. So these are the examples of grant in aid which are provided by the center to the state governments under the Article 275, and the Finance Commission, it also gives various type of directions to the union government to provide grants under Article 275. Also, to augment the consolidated fund of states, which eventually provide money to local bodies, the Finance Commission, it also recommends the state governments to augment their consolidated fund of India through Finance Commission of various states. Also, any other matter which is referred to the Finance Commission by the President of India, these are terms as terms of references. They are also considered by the Finance Commission, which in previous Finance Commission was field of defense expenditure or expenditures related to disaster management efforts. So all of these recommendations, they're given by Finance Commission, and all of these recommendations, they're aimed to reduce the imbalance of finances between union government and state government. Now let us understand what have been causes of friction between the central and state governments in the recent past regarding the distribution of finances according to the recommendation of Finance Commission. Now, the first issue of friction is related to allocation of the funds. Now, state governments in particular, they've highlighted their concern that with increasing amount of time, the amount they spend on healthcare, on educational services, and on policing efforts, all of these are increasing in the recent years. So, to compensate the states, the last Finance Commission, which was 15th Finance Commission, it provided that out of total funds that the central government has, the central government should devolve 41% of these funds to all the states combined. But the state governments, they are of the opinion, because of their increased responsibilities, this allocation should be increased eventually. So this is the issue related to increased allocation of funds, that the state government, they are demanding more funds from the union government. Also, there is a concern related to delivery of funds, because this 41% of funds, they are given based on net tax revenue, which is calculated by the Finance Commission, which is a difference between gross tax revenue, that is all the taxes which are collected by the union government, and you reduce the amount of cess and surcharge which is collected by the union government. So when you reduce the amount of cess and surcharge which is collected by the union government, you eventually get the net tax revenue, and the 41% of this revenue shared by with the state governments. So you can understand from this formula that as the amount of cess and surcharge will increase, it will eventually reduce the net tax receipts of the state governments. So from this pie chart, you can understand that this is the share which reflects cess and surcharge. Now, this share of funds is shared with state governments, which constitutes net tax revenue. So, as this particular pie increases, it reduces the shareable income with states, which again highlights the issues related to cess and surcharge. Because on one hand, the Constitution of India, it says that the union government is not liable to share the proceeds of cess and surcharge with that to state governments. However, as in recent times we have seen, the amount of cess and surcharge which is collected by the government has increased manifold. And because of this, the total amounts of funds which is eventually shared with states, it has reduced, thereby reducing the total amount of fund under this 41%. Also, the state governments in recent past, they have highlighted the issue of inequity among the distribution of funds between various states. Because on one hand, as you can understand, the Finance Commission, it distributes the funds among states based on this 6 criteria. And as you can see, the factor of income distance, which has a highest share of 45%, as well as the population figures, which has a share of 15%, combined has a share of 60%. Now, northern states particularly, they have high population and also they have a low income in general, which means that the northern states, they get an increased share of funds among the various states. Because for example, of every 1 rupee that these northern states collect, they get 7 rupees as far as the devolution of Finance Commission provisions is concerned. Whereas the more developed states, which have higher income and less population, such as Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, they get, for every 1 rupee that they contribute to finances, they get only 29 paisa in return. So according to the southern government, it is an issue that the states, they are not treated equally, because the developed state which have controlled population, they are getting lesser share of money despite contributing higher share to the total collection of taxes. Whereas the northern states, which have significant proportion of lower income population and also the level of population is high, it creates or it allows the Finance Commission to give more funds to these lesser developed northern states. So this has created a condition or grievances among southern states that they are treated unfairly by the Finance Commission. Also is the issue of autonomy, because as you can understand, the proceeds which are given by Finance Commission have implications both on union and state governments. However, appointing the members of Finance Commission as well as setting the terms of references which eventually decides what kind of money goes to defense or to disaster management activities, they come under the sole prerogative of the union government, and on these matters the state government, they have no say at all. So this highlights that the autonomy of the Finance Commission as an independent body, it somewhat is compromised because of higher say of the union government in appointment and setting of terms of references. So all of these in total highlights or are the cause of friction which is there between state and central government. So let us understand what should be the ideal way forward in order to make the distribution of taxes between state and union government more fair in general. Now, the first suggestion in this regard is to include the proceeds of cess and surcharge in the total divisible pool, because currently they are excluded and they form as much as 28% of total tax collection by the union government. So by the current standards, you can understand that this 28% of total tax collected, they are not shareable with states, thereby reducing the total amount of money which the states will get. Hence, by including the proceeds of cess and surcharge in the divisible pool, we will provide more and more funds to the state government. Also, there is a need to enhance the revenue capabilities of both state and local government because as they will have more and more revenues which they can get themselves, it will also reduce their dependence on the devolutions made by finance commission. Further, by making the transfers of these net proceeds of funds transparent and predictable, it will allow the governments to have or to plan their budgets more effectively. Also, by providing political independence to finance commission, by including both the recommendations of union and state governments in terms of setting terms of references or to appointing members to the finance commission, will allow the finance commission to have a independent political existence. Also, by making the finance commission a continuous body, will enable the finance commission to regularly review the proceeds that are given to state governments and have adjustments in case there are unfair distributions of taxes. So this was all for the discussion of the second article of the day that appeared in the Hindu newspaper, and the topic was the distribution and frictions caused by the finance commission devolution. So with this we move to the next set of articles. Sorry. Now, the next set of articles you can see, the first of which appeared in the Hindu newspaper. Now, this article highlights or details about what is Thangka art. Now, as you can see from this picture, it is a form of Buddhist art which originated in the area of Tibet, which comes under the control of China. Now, questions related to various different types of paintings that are prevalent in India. It is important from the prelims perspective. As you can see, question appeared on Kalamkari painting in the year 2015. And also this part is important from GS paper 1 syllabus because the syllabus highlights salient aspects of art forms. Now in this regard, let us understand what is this Thangka art. Now this Thangka art, it is, as I've already highlighted, originated in Tibet region of China. And it has various different features because the word Thangka itself, it means the one that unrolls. Hence you can see these art forms, they are made in terms of scrolls. Now this is a Tibetan Buddhist painting which is made on cotton or silk clothing, and it is commonly painted by holy lamas or Buddhist monks. Now the subject of these paintings is that they depict the life story of either Lord Buddha or other important Buddhist deities and influential lamas. Now, the central subject of these paintings are deity themselves, and these are surrounded by other identified figures in a symmetrical composition. And one of the most important feature of these form of paintings are that these contain important subjects such as wheel of life, which in Buddhism is called as Bhav Chakra. Now, these are visual representations of Adidharma teachings, which means art of enlightenment, which is a central concept in the Buddhist philosophy. Now, in India, this form of painting has flourished in states such as Himachal Pradesh, especially in areas of Lahaul and Spiti, in Ladakh, as well as in northeastern states such as Arunachal Pradesh, as well as Sikkim. So based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. Regarding Thangka art form, consider the following statements. The first statement, it is usually associated with depiction of Buddhist deities, which you can understand is correct as I have already highlighted here. The second statement, this art form originated in northeastern region of India, which is incorrect because this form of art originated in Tibet, which is currently located in China. Now the third statement, Bhav Chakra, it is an important subject of Thangka art form, which you can see is correct, as this Bhav Chakra, it highlights wheel of life, which is a form of visual representation, highlighting the art of enlightenment, which is central to the Buddhist philosophy. Now as one and third statement is correct, hence option C is the right answer to this practice question. Moving on to the second article, which again appeared in the Hindu newspaper, and it describes about what are foreigners tribunals which are currently located in states of Assam. Now, various quasi-judicial bodies are important from GS paper to perspective and also from the perspective of prelims examination. As you can see, in the year 2018, a question appeared on National Green Tribunal. So let us understand what are these foreigners tribunal. Now, these foreigner tribunals, as I have already highlighted, are quasi-judicial bodies which are established as per the Foreigner Tribunals Order of the year 1964, and it was enacted as per Section 3 of the Foreigners Act of year 1946. Now, the members of these tribunals, they are appointed by central government, and the qualification which is required for the members of these tribunals, they include the member should either be advocate not below the age of 35 years and have at least 7 years of practice, or they can be retired judicial officers based off some judicial service, and also retired IAS and Assam Civil Services officers who have an experience in quasi-judicial works. Also, who can set up these tribunals? Earlier, only the central government was able to set up these tribunals. However, this was amended and it, and this was amended and it gave the powers of setting up of tribunals to district magistrates of all states and union territories. Further, earlier only state government and its administration could have approached these tribunals. However, recently even the individuals were allowed to approach these tribunals in case of various issues. Also, whenever the border police or election commission of India identifies or suspects an individual to be a foreigner, these bodies can refer to the foreigners tribunal, and the tribunal considers the cases by ordering the person to appear before it. And based on the evidences which the person provides, the tribunal passes an order within a period of 60 days itself. Understood? So this tribunal has the power of declaring an individual either a citizen of India or a illegal immigrant or a foreigner. Understood? So let us now solve the practice question with reference to foreigners tribunal. Consider the following statements. The first statement, it is a statutory body formed under Passports Act of the year 1967, which is incorrect because it is formed under the Foreigners Act of the year 1946. The second statement, district magistrates in all the states can form foreigners tribunal to decide illegal immigration, which you can understand is a correct statement because generally the aspirants have the tendency to mark these absolute statements as incorrect. But this absolute statement today is a correct statement because recently, as earlier only the central government has the power to establish these tribunals, but recently the powers were given to district magistrates of all states and union territories in India. Coming to the third statement, the tribunal must conclude cases within 360 days of receiving references, which again is incorrect because the tribunal is required to pass an order within a period of just 60 days, that is 2 months. So as only statement 2 is correct, hence option A is the right answer to this question as only one statement is correct. Moving to the next article, which you can see appeared in the Indian Express newspaper, and it highlights a digital portal called UWin, which is a digital portal for country's vaccination program called Universal Immunization Program. Now, developments related to health sector is not just important from GS paper to perspective, but is also important from prelims perspective because as you can see, a question on Janani Suraksha Yojana appeared in the prelims of the year 2023. So in this regard, let us understand what is this UWin portal. Now it is an electronic registry of routine immunization which is aimed to reduce zero dose and left out children. Now this portal, it targets population and coverage of various eligibility or beneficiaries of country's universal immunization program, which means capturing pregnant women and children between the age of 0 to 6 years. Also, this scheme provides vaccines for 12 vaccine preventable diseases. Hence, through these portal, you can track the immunization levels and outcomes of these beneficiaries. So, what are the features of this portal? That this portal, it has the ability to generate a uniform QR based vaccine certificate which can be verified even by health authorities. Further, it records various details such as pregnancy details, outcomes of vaccination drive, newborn registration, and immunization, which takes place at the time of birth of an individual. Also, this portal not just provides facilities for pre registration, but it also enables on spot registrations of the excluded individuals. Further, with same mobile number, as much as 10% can apply or can register themselves for the vaccination drive. Also, this portal sends automated SMS alerts that whenever the next immunization drive is due for the individuals. So, based on this information, let us now solve the practice question. With reference to UWin portal, consider the following statements. The first statement, it is designed to digitize the universal immunization program, which I have highlighted here, is a correct option. Second, the self-registration is mandatory for the routine vaccination on this portal. This statement is incorrect because in addition to self-registration, this portal also provides the facility to have on-spot registrations as well. Also, only 4 people can register for vaccination on this portal using a same mobile number, which is incorrect because the portal which was brought forward during COVID, that was CoWIN portal, it had the ability to register as much as 4 people. However, this UWin portal has an ability to register as much as 10 people on just one mobile number. So, as only first statement here is correct, hence option A is the right answer to this practice question. Moving on to the last article, which you can see appeared in the explain section of the Indian Express newspaper. Now, this article highlights green revolution in maize, which is a major crop in an Indian economy. Hence, it is important from GS paper 3 perspective. Also, questions in the prelims examination have appeared in the mains in past, that was in the year 2014. Hence, this topic is not just important from Indian agricultural point of view, but it is also important as this crop serves as a feed not just for humans but also for animal feed. So you can see the production levels of this crop has increased in last few decades. That is from decade of 81 to 85, you can see there's a continuous increase in the production levels of maize. Now let us understand what are the growing conditions which is required for the maize crop. Now this is a crop which is best suited to be grown in a well-drained sandy loam or silty loam soils which have an pH levels of between 5.5 to 7.5. Also, alluvial soils are very suitable for growing maize crop. Hence, you can see this crop is grown widely in states such as Uttar Pradesh as well as Bihar. Further, this plant is a warm weather plant and it is mainly hence grown in Kharif season in the northern part of India. Whereas in southern part of India, which is generally warmer, it can be grown anytime between April to October. Further, the most suitable temperature for germination of this crop is 21 degrees centigrade. As far as growth is concerned, it is somewhat increased or larger, that is 32 degrees centigrade. So all things considered, you understand this is a warm weather plant. Also, if water stagnates around this crop, it is eventually harmful for this crop. And also, this crop is not very suitable in extremely high temperatures and during the times of low humidity because it eventually damages the flowering stage of this crop. So, based on this information, let us now quickly solve the last practice question. Consider the following statements regarding maize. Maize production in India has grown continuously in last 5 days. And I have highlighted here, it is a correct statement because as you can see, it has continuously increased and it has not decreased even in one period. Now the second statement, it grows best in cool climatic condition, which is incorrect. As you can see, it is a warm weather plant which requires higher than usual temperatures. That is, for germination, it requires 21 degrees centigrade, as well as for growth, it requires 32 degrees centigrade. Hence, it is a warm weather plant. Therefore, statement 2 is incorrect. Thereby, you can say safely that option A is the right answer, as only statement 1 was correct for this practice question. So this was all for today's discussion of Daily News Simplified, and we'll see you again tomorrow at 6 p.m. So until then, I bid you a very good night.